The bold declaration. The grand celestial summit shimmered beneath the twin moons of Valorum, its floating palace suspended by ancient gravitational technology that hummed with quiet power. Crystalline columns rose toward the star-scattered sky, reflecting the bioluminescent gardens that wound through the diplomatic complex like veins of light. Representatives from a dozen star systems filled the main assembly hall, their ceremonial robes creating a tapestry of colors and cultures. Captain Darius Crane stood near the human delegation, his military dress uniform feeling constrictive after months aboard frontier vessels. His weathered face and scarred hands marked him as a soldier, not a diplomat. Yet his commanding officer had insisted his presence was crucial for the fragile peace negotiations. He barely listened to the droning speeches about trade routes and territorial boundaries, his attention drawn instead to the woman seated among the Valoran nobility. Lady Amara Silverin possessed an ethereal quality that made her stand out even among her own people. Silver streaks wove through her dark hair like captured starlight, and her violet eyes held depths that suggested both wisdom and sorrow. She sat with perfect posture, her elegant gown of deep blue fabric shifting with subtle iridescence as she moved. Darius had been watching over her for 3 months now, ever since intelligence revealed the assassination plot. What had started as duty had become something far more dangerous to his carefully guarded heart. The High Chancellor called for the traditional exchange of gifts between the great houses, and Darius felt his pulse quicken. This was the moment. His hand moved to the silver medallion at his chest, the claiming token he'd acquired through considerable effort and risk. "I evoke the right of devoted claim," Darius announced, his voice carrying through the sudden silence as he stepped forward into the center of the hall. Gasps rippled through the assembly. The ancient rite hadn't been used in over a century, but it remained legally binding. Darius walked with measured steps toward the Valoran section, his eyes never leaving Amara's shocked face. "I, Captain Darius Crane of Terra, claim Lady Amara Silverin as my chosen mate under the laws of both our peoples." He placed the medallion on the presentation altar before her. "I offer my protection, my devotion, and my life in service to her will." The hall erupted in chaos. Nobles shouted in outrage while others demanded order, but the loudest sound came from Prince Taloran Vex, whose chair scraped violently against the polished floor as he stood. "You dare?" Taloran's voice dripped with fury and disbelief. He was tall and imposing, his features sharp and aristocratic, his ceremonial armor glimmering with the symbols of his ancient house. "I challenge you, human," Taloran declared, his knuckles white around the hilt. The weapon's edge glowed with a faint blue light, a molecular edge capable of cutting through nearly anything. Guards in ornate armor rushed forward, forming barriers between the two men. The High Chancellor called desperately for order, but Darius barely heard any of it. His eyes had found Amara's across the crystalline hall. She stared at him with an expression he couldn't fully read. Shock, certainly, but beneath it something that might have been hope. Her lips parted slightly, and for just a heartbeat the chaos around them seemed to fade. In that moment, Darius saw recognition in her eyes. She knew. Somehow she understood this wasn't just political theater. "This summit is suspended," the High Chancellor announced, his aged voice amplified by the hall's acoustics. "All parties will retire to quarters until the Council determines how to proceed with this unprecedented situation." As guards moved to escort various delegations away, Amara stood gracefully. Her handmaiden rushed to her side, but Amara's gaze remained locked on Darius even as Taloran stepped possessively closer to her. "You've made a grave mistake, Captain," Taloran hissed, close now that only those nearby could hear. One that will cost you everything. Darius smiled without humor. Then I'll pay that price gladly. As they were separated by the crowd and protocol, Darius caught one last glimpse of Amara being guided toward the noble quarters. She glanced back at him over her shoulder, and in that brief look, he saw the question that would determine everything. Why? Soon he promised himself he would tell her the truth, all of it.
Secrets in Starlight. The noble quarters of the floating palace were gilded cages, beautiful but confining. Amara paced the length of her chamber, her footsteps silent on the plush carpeting that depicted ancient Veloran constellations. Floor-to-ceiling windows displayed the breathtaking vista of Veloram's capital city below, its lights twinkling like fallen stars, but she saw none of it. Her mind replayed the moment endlessly. Darius stepping forward, his voice unwavering as he claimed her before the entire summit. The audacity of it should have filled her with fury. Instead, her heart raced with something dangerously close to exhilaration. "My lady, you must eat something," Mira, her handmaiden and closest confidant, urged softly. The young woman had been with Amara since childhood, one of the few people she truly trusted. "How can I eat when my entire life is to spin upended?" Amara finally stopped pacing, pressing her palms against the cool window glass. "Taloran will demand blood for this insult. The Council will use it as an excuse to tighten restrictions on human Veloran relations. And that human captain?" "What about him?" Mira asked carefully. Amara closed her eyes. "I've seen him before, Mira. At the Winter Gala 3 months ago. He was in the shadows near the terrace watching. And again at the cultural exhibition. I thought I was imagining things. Perhaps he's been planning this for some time." A soft sound from the balcony made both women freeze. Amara's hand moved instinctively to the decorative blade she kept hidden in her sleeve, but then a familiar voice spoke from the darkness. "Please, don't be alarmed." Darius stepped into the soft light emanating from her chamber, his military uniform replaced with dark, practical clothing. His expression was earnest, almost vulnerable, so different from the confident warrior who had faced down an entire assembly hall. "How did you—" "The guards—" Amara began, but Mira had already moved to the door, positioning herself as a lookout. "I have about 10 minutes before the patrol rotation brings them past this wing. I need you to understand why I did what I did today." "You've endangered both our peoples for what? Pride? Some misguided sense of—" "To save your life." The words hung in the air between them. Amara felt her breath catch as Darius moved closer, pulling a small data crystal from his pocket. 4 months ago, our intelligence division intercepted communications between several Veloran noble houses. They're planning to assassinate you during the summit. You're seen as too sympathetic to human integration, too much of a bridge between our peoples. Your death would be blamed on human extremists, reigniting the war that nearly destroyed both our civilizations. She took the crystal with trembling fingers. "Taloran? We don't know if he's directly involved, but his faction stands to gain the most from your death. The treaty binding you to him was signed by your father when you were a child, before he understood the kind of man Taloran would become." She looked up at him, searching his face for deception and finding none. "And the claiming right? How does that protect me?" "Under ancient law, an uncompleted claim puts you under neutral protection until the matter's resolved. The Council can't simply hand you back to Taloran without a trial or contest.
It buys us time." "Us?" The word escaped before she could stop it. "I've been watching you for months, Amara. At first, it was just an assignment. Protect the diplomatic bridge, prevent another war. But then I saw who you really are. The way you speak to servants with the same respect you show nobility. How you sneak food from banquets to the kitchen workers. The gardens you funded for orphaned children in the lower city." Her breath hitched as his hand rose slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away, before his fingers gently brushed a silver strand of hair from her face. "I watched you, and somewhere along the way, this stopped being about duty. I claimed you today because it was the only way to protect you, yes, but also because the thought of you bound to someone who doesn't see your worth, who would use you as a political tool." His jaw tightened. "I couldn't bear it." "You don't know me," Amara whispered, but even as she said it, she knew it wasn't entirely true. This man had seen her in ways others hadn't, noticed details that even those closest to her had missed. "Then let me know you, truly, not as a duty or assignment, but as—" "My lady." Mira's urgent whisper cut through the moment. "Guards approaching." Darius's hand dropped, but his eyes never left Amara's face. "There's a secure communication line in the data crystal. If you need me, use it. I meant what I said today. My life in service to your will. Always." He moved toward the balcony with practiced ease, but Amara's voice stopped him. "Darius." He turned back, and she saw her own confusion and longing reflected in his expression. "Thank you for telling me the truth." He offered a small, genuine smile that transformed his rugged features. "I'll never lie to you, Amara. That's a promise." Then he was gone, disappearing into the shadows as if he had never been there at all. Amara stood frozen, her heart pounding, the data crystal clutched in her hand like a lifeline. Mira returned to her side, concern etched on her features. "My lady, are you all right?" Amara looked down at the crystal, then toward the balcony where Darius had vanished. "I don't know, Mira. For the first time in my life, I truly don't know."
The Trial of Blades. The council convened at dawn, and their decision sent ripples through the palace. The Trial of Blades, an ancient tradition that tested not just combat prowess, but worthiness of spirit, cultural understanding, and devotion. 3 days, 3 challenges. The winner would have the right to Amara's hand. Amara stood in the observation gallery, overlooking the ceremonial arena, her fingers gripping the railing as morning light filtered through the crystal dome above. Below, workers prepared the space with elaborate precision, arranging the traditional elements for each phase of the trial. "You should not be here, my lady." Talaren's voice came from behind her, smooth and controlled. "It's unseemly for the prize to watch the contestants prepare." She turned to face him, forcing her expression to remain neutral despite the disgust roiling in her stomach. He looked immaculate, as always, his dark hair perfectly styled, his ceremonial robes displaying his house symbols with calculated pride. "I am not a prize, Talaren. I am a person with agency, and I will witness the trial that determines my future." His smile was cold. "Of course, your spirit is one of the things I've always admired about you, even when it proves inconvenient." He moved closer, and she fought the urge to step back. "This human's little stunt changes nothing. I will defeat him in every challenge, and you will fulfill the oath your father made." "My father is dead," Amara said quietly, "and if you were truly confident in your victory, you wouldn't be here trying to intimidate me." Something dangerous flashed in Talaren's eyes before he concealed it. "Careful, Amara. I've been patient with your rebellious tendencies, but my patience has limits. After the trial, when you are my wife, we will discuss proper behavior for a consort of House Vex." He left before she could respond, his footsteps echoing through the gallery. Amara released a shaky breath, her hands trembling slightly. The data crystal Darius had given her was hidden in her quarters, and she had spent half the night reviewing the contents. The evidence was damning, coded messages, financial transfers, meeting records. But it wasn't enough yet to prove Talaran's direct involvement. The first day of trials began at midday. The arena filled with nobles, diplomats, and citizens granted the rare privilege of witnessing such a historic event. Amara sat in the place of honor, flanked by the High Council members, trying to maintain composure as the ceremonial drums announced the contestants. Talaran entered first, his armor gleaming, moving with the practiced grace of someone trained in combat since childhood. The crowd cheered. He was their prince, after all, born to lead and protect. Then Darius emerged, and Amara's breath caught. He wore traditional challenger's armor, simpler than Talaran's, but fitted perfectly to his form. His expression was focused, determined, and when his eyes found hers in the crowd, he placed his fist over his heart in a gesture of devotion. The first challenge tested combat skill and honor. Both men fought with ceremonial blades against trained opponents, their movements judged not just for effectiveness but for adherence to the ancient codes. Talaran fought with cold precision, defeating his opponents efficiently but without mercy, delivering strikes that left them injured beyond what was necessary. Darius fought differently. His style was less polished but more adaptable, and when he disarmed his final opponent, he helped the man to his feet with respect, earning murmurs of approval from portions of the crowd. The second day brought the test of cultural knowledge and philosophy. Contestants had to demonstrate understanding of Valoran history, traditions, and wisdom. Amara watched, astonished, as Darius quoted from ancient texts, answered complex questions about Valoran spiritual practices, and even performed a traditional ritual dance with surprising grace. "He's been studying," Mira whispered beside her. "By the look of it." Amara felt her heart clench. This wasn't just strategy. Darius had immersed himself in her culture not to win a trial, but to understand her world, her people, her heritage. That evening, as tradition dictated, each contestant could present a gift of devotion. Talaran offered a priceless necklace of starfire diamonds, ostentatious and expensive, garnering appreciative gasps from the crowd. Darius approached with nothing visible in his hands, and Amara's pulse quickened with curiosity. He knelt before her as protocol demanded, but when he spoke, his voice was meant for her alone. "Lady Amara, I cannot offer you jewels or wealth, but I can offer you this." He pulled out a small living plant in a delicate container. A Terran moonflower, incredibly rare and difficult to grow outside Earth's atmosphere. Its pale petals glowed softly in the dimming light. "Your maiden mentioned once that you mourned the loss of the garden your mother planted before she died. This flower blooms only at night, when the world is quiet and true selves emerge. Like you, it thrives in shadows others overlook, creating beauty where least expected. It requires careful tending, patience, and genuine care to flourish. I offer it as a promise that I see you, truly see you, and will nurture not just your safety, but your happiness, your dreams, your freedom to grow as you choose." Tears pricked her eyes. The moonflower had been her mother's favorite, a detail so obscure that even most of her family had forgotten. The fact that Darius knew that he'd acquired something so rare and meaningful. "Thank you," she whispered, accepting the plant with trembling hands. "It's beautiful." The crowd murmured, some confused by the simple gift, others moved by the obvious emotion in the exchange. Talaran's expression darkened with barely concealed fury. That night, Amara couldn't sleep. She found herself in the palace gardens, seeking solitude among the bioluminescent flowers. She wasn't surprised when Darius appeared from the shadows. Somehow she'd known he would. "You're supposed to be in your quarters," she said softly as he approached. "So are you." I stopped a respectful distance away,
but the air between us felt charged. I needed to see you. Tomorrow is the final challenge. The test of devotion. Amara knew what it entailed. Each contestant would face their greatest fear or sacrifice while the other watched, their reactions judged for genuine concern and love rather than possessive pride. Darius, whatever happens tomorrow, I need you to know something. Darius moved closer, and she didn't stop him. I don't expect you to return my feelings. I don't even expect you to choose me. But I want you to be free. Free from obligations you never agreed to. Free from danger. Free to decide your own path. And if my path doesn't include you? Pain flashed across his face, but his voice remained steady. Then I'll accept that, as long as you're safe and happy. Your freedom matters more than my desires. Amara looked up at him, this human who had upended her world, who watched her with such fierce tenderness that it made her chest ache. You're making this very difficult. Making what difficult? Maintaining proper distance, remembering all the reasons this is complicated and dangerous and potentially disastrous. A slow smile curved his lips. I apologize, my lady, though I confess I'm particularly not sorry. She laughed despite herself, the sound surprising them both. When was the last time she had felt this light, this genuinely herself? Darius, She stepped closer, drawn by something she couldn't name and wasn't sure she wanted to resist. His hand rose to cup her cheek, warm and gentle, and she leaned into the touch. Tell me to stop, he murmured, his face inches from hers, and instead of answering, Amara closed the remaining distance, her lips meeting his in a kiss that felt like coming home and leaping into the unknown all at once. His arms wrapped around her, pulling her close as she melted into his embrace. The kiss deepened, conveying everything words couldn't: longing, hope, fear, and a connection that transcended politics and culture. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Darius rested his forehead against hers. Whatever tomorrow brings, thank you for this moment. I'll carry it with me always. Amara held him tighter, knowing that tomorrow would test them in ways neither could predict, but for now, in this garden beneath foreign stars, she let herself simply feel betrayal and rebellion. The final day of the Trial of Blades dawned with an unsettling crimson sky, as if the planet itself sensed the coming storm. Amara stood before the High Council in the Grand Chamber, the moonflower Darius had given her, carefully tended in her private quarters, its presence a constant reminder of the impossible choice before her. The test of devotion required each contestant to face a personal trial while their rival observed, their reactions revealing the truth of their feelings. But as Amara took her seat among the assembled nobles, Mira pressed a small data chip into her palm. "My lady, you need to see this. Now!" her handmaiden whispered urgently. Amara's fingers closed around the chip, but before she could respond, Taloran strode into the chamber with a contingent of royal guards. His expression was triumphant in a way that sent ice through her veins. "Honored Council," Taloran announced, his voice resonating through the space. "Before we proceed with today's trial, I have evidence that must be presented regarding Captain Crane's suitability as a potential mate for Lady Amara." Darius entered from the opposite side, his jaw tight as he sensed the trap closing around him. His eyes found Amara's, and she saw apology there, mixed with resignation. Taloran activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. Images appeared: military records, combat footage, casualty reports. 7 years ago, Captain Darius Crane led a human military strike on the Veolaran outpost of Silveran's Reach. The attack resulted in 43 Veolaran deaths, including several civilians sheltering there. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Amara felt her blood turn cold as she recognized the location, the outpost named for her family,
where her uncle Theron had served as commander. Among the dead, continued Taloran with false sympathy, was Commander Theron Silverin, Lady Amara's beloved uncle who raised her after her mother's death. He turned to her, his expression a mask of concern. "My lady, I am sorry you must learn this way that the man claiming to love you is responsible for your uncle's murder." The chamber erupted in outrage. Nobles shouted for Darius's immediate arrest. Some called for his execution. Amara sat frozen, her world tilting on its axis. She looked at Darius, silently begging him to deny it. He met her gaze steadily, his face grave. "It's true." Those two words shattered something inside her. Amara rose on unsteady legs, her voice barely audible above the chaos. "You knew? All this time you knew what you'd done and you—" She couldn't finish, couldn't breathe past the betrayal crushing her chest. "Amara, please, let me explain." Darius took a step toward her, but guards moved to block him. "Explain what?" Her voice broke on the words. "That you killed my uncle? That you've been lying to me while claiming devotion? That everything, the protection, the claiming, all of it was built on blood and deception?" "Captain Crane will be taken into custody pending investigation," the High Chancellor declared. "The trial is suspended. Lady Amara, you are hereby released from the claiming right. Prince Taloran, your prior arrangement stands." "No." Amara's voice cut through the pronouncement like a blade. She activated the data chip Mira had given her, and new images flooded the chamber. Financial records, coded messages, meeting logs. "Before we discuss my future, the Council should know that Prince Taloran has been funding separatist groups on 3 human colony worlds. He's been orchestrating attacks designed to reignite the war between our peoples." Taloran's confident expression flickered. "Preposterous. More human lies." "These records were pulled from your personal encrypted accounts," Amara continued, her voice gaining strength even as her heart shattered. "You've been planning to assassinate me and blame human extremists. My death would give you justification to break the peace accords and seize emergency powers." "Where did you get this information?" the High Chancellor demanded, his ancient face pale with shock. "From Captain Crane's Intelligence Division," Amara admitted, "the same source that's been protecting me for months, even before the claiming right." The chamber descended in pandemonium. Taloran's guards moved to arrest him, but he drew his blade with inhuman speed, grabbing the nearest counselor and pressing the glowing edge to the elderly man's throat. "Nobody moves," Taloran snarled, his civilized mask finally slipping to reveal the monster beneath. "This pathetic peace was always temporary. Humans are a plague that must be purged. I will not watch our great civilization diluted by inferior blood." His eyes locked on Amara with hatred. "And I will not be bound to a half-breed traitor who spreads her legs for human filth." Darius lunged forward, but more guards appeared. Taloran's personal forces, loyal to him rather than the Council. Energy weapons powered up, and suddenly the ceremonial chamber had become a battlefield. "Take them both," Taloran ordered, shoving the counselor aside. "And someone bring me the evidence they think damns me. I'll show you all what true Veolaran strength looks like." In the chaos, Mira grabbed Amara's arm. "My lady, we have to run, now!" Darius fought his way to them, disarming guards with brutal efficiency. "There's a service passage behind the eastern tapestry. It leads to the lower city." "I'm not running with you," Amara said, her voice cold despite her racing heart. "You're a murderer. You killed my family. And I'll carry that weight until I die. But right now, Taloran's forces are seizing control of the palace. If you stay, you die. Hate me later, survive now." An explosion rocked the chamber as Taloran's forces used heavy weapons against the council guards. The ancient tapestry Darius had mentioned caught fire, and suddenly there was no time for arguments.
Amara ran with Mira and Darius through passages she'd never known existed, the sounds of battle echoing behind them. They emerged in the lower city as sirens wailed across the capital. Ships launched from the palace, spreading Taloran's forces throughout the city. Darius led them through twisting alleys to a safe house, where sympathetic contacts provided them shelter. In the cramped apartment, as Mira tended to minor injuries and monitored communication channels, Amara finally confronted Darius. Rain hammered against the windows, the storm matching her inner turmoil. "Tell me," she demanded, her voice tight with pain. "Tell me about my uncle's death." Darius stood across the room, deliberately keeping distance between them. His expression was ravaged with guilt and sorrow. Silveran's Reach was designated a military target. Intelligence said it was a weapons depot, a staging ground for attacks on human colonies. We didn't know civilians were sheltering there until after... He closed his eyes. "Your uncle died trying to evacuate them. He was a hero. And I killed him because I trusted flawed intelligence and didn't question my orders closely enough." "Why didn't you tell me?" Amara's voice cracked. "Before the claiming, before you made me care about you, why didn't you tell me?" "Because I'm a coward," Darius said simply, opening his eyes to meet hers. "Because I knew it would destroy any chance I had with you, and I convinced myself that keeping you alive mattered more than your trust. I told myself I'd confess after you were safe, after Taloran was exposed. But the truth is, I was afraid to lose you." Tears finally spilled down Amara's cheeks. "You never had me to lose. Everything between us was built on lies." "Not everything." He took one step closer, his voice raw with emotion. "My devotion was real. My determination to protect you, to see you free, that was real. The way I fell in love with your strength and compassion and fierce heart, that was the most real thing I've ever felt. But you're right that I should have told you the truth from the beginning. I failed you, and I failed your uncle's memory." Amara wanted to rage at him, to unleash all her pain and betrayal. But exhaustion weighed on her, and the reality of their situation pressed down like a physical force. "Taloran has seized the palace. He'll hunt us both now." "There are others who oppose him," Darius said carefully. "Military officers, nobles who believe in the peace. If we can reach them, organize a resistance. A resistance led by the man who attacked Veolaran civilians?" Amara laughed bitterly. "They'll never follow you." "Then they'll follow you." Darius moved to the window, staring out at the rain-soaked city. "You're Theron Silveran's niece. He was beloved by the military, respected by nobles and commoners alike. His name carries weight that mine never could." Mira approached quietly. "My lady, he's right. I've been monitoring communications. Several military units are refusing Taloran's orders. They're waiting for someone to rally behind." Amara looked at the moonflower she'd managed to grab before fleeing, its petals still glowing softly.
Unity forged in fire. 3 weeks after fleeing the palace, Amara stood before a gathering of rebels in an abandoned industrial complex on the city's edge. Former military officers, disillusioned nobles, human diplomats, and common citizens who refused to accept Taloran's regime filled the space. They looked to her with hope and desperation. She had changed in those weeks. Her elegant gowns were replaced by practical armor, her silver-streaked hair braided back for combat. But the greatest change was internal. She discovered a strength forged from pain, a leadership born from necessity. Darius stood in the back of the crowd, keeping his distance as he'd done since their argument. He coordinated military strategy with his human contacts and some Veolaran officers who could see past his history. But he never pushed for more from Amara than she was willing to give. The space between them ached like an open wound neither could heal.
General Riven, one of her uncle's former comrades, reported. Talaran has fortified the palace. His forces control the orbital platforms and most government centers. He's declared martial law and ordered the arrest of anyone suspected of sympathizing with humans. Then we remind him that strength isn't measured in weapons or fear, Amara replied, her voice carrying authority she'd never known she possessed. It's measured in unity, in the courage to stand for what's right despite the cost. Mira approached with urgent news. My lady, we've intercepted communications. Talaran is planning a public execution tomorrow. Prisoners he's taken from the human embassy. He's using it as a show of force, daring us to respond. Amara's jaw tightened. Then we respond, but not the way he expects. She turned to the assembled leaders. We won't just rescue the prisoners. We're going to take back the palace and end this before more people die on both sides. The plan was audacious, perhaps impossible. They would strike during the execution, using the chaos to breach the palace defenses. Multiple teams would move simultaneously, some to free prisoners, others to disable Talaran's communication networks, and Amara herself would lead a small force directly to the throne room to confront the prince. As the meeting dispersed and teams prepared for the operation, Darius finally approached her. They stood alone in a corner of the complex, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between them. You don't have to lead the assault personally, he said quietly. Let me go in your place. If something goes wrong, my people need to see that I was willing to risk everything, just as I ask them to risk. This isn't about glory, Darius. It's about showing them what kind of leader I intend to be. He nodded slowly. You've become extraordinary these past weeks. Your uncle would be proud. The mention of Theron sent a lance of pain through her chest. Don't talk about him like you have that right. I don't, Darius acknowledged, but he would be proud anyway, not because of anything I think or feel, but because it's the simple truth. Amara closed her eyes, exhaustion and emotion finally overwhelming her carefully maintained walls. I don't know how to do this, Darius. I don't know how to lead these people, how to stop hating you, how to reconcile the fact that the man who killed my uncle is the same man who... She couldn't finish. The same man who loves you, Darius completed softly. You don't have to reconcile it, Amara. Some things can't be forgiven, and that's okay. I can live with your hatred if it means you survive and build the future you deserve. I don't hate you, she whispered, finally opening her eyes to look at him. That's what makes this so impossibly hard. I should hate you. I want to hate you. But when I think about losing you in tomorrow's battle, when I imagine a future where you're not... Her voice broke. Darius took a careful step closer. Amara, I need to tell you something before tomorrow, in case I don't get another chance. Don't make this harder with goodbyes. Not a goodbye, the truth. He took a shaky breath. After Sylvan's reach, after I learned about the civilians, about your uncle, I requested every detail about him, read his service records, his commendations, testimonies from those who served under him. I learned about the orphanage he funded, the scholarship programs he established, how he took in his niece after her sister died and raised her as his own daughter. Tears slipped down Amara's cheeks as Darius continued. I learned what kind of man I'd killed, and it broke something in me. I requested discharge from active combat duty, spent 2 years in diplomatic service trying to atone. Then the intelligence about the assassination plot against you came through, and I saw a photo of you, Theron's niece who had his same fierce eyes and generous heart. I volunteered immediately, not just out of duty, because protecting you felt like the only way I could begin to make amends. That's not atonement, Amara said hoarsely. That's just guilt. It started as guilt, Darius agreed. But it became love, real love, the kind that wants your happiness even at the cost of my own. The kind that knows I can never undo what I did, but still desperately wants to build something better from the ashes. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently wiped the tears from her cheeks. I love you, Amara Silverin, and tomorrow I'm going to help you win this fight, not for redemption or forgiveness, but because it's right, because you deserve a world where you're safe and free. Amara stood trembling, her heart a battlefield of warring emotions. I don't know how to do this tomorrow. I can't forget what you did. I can't pretend my uncle's death doesn't matter, that the pain doesn't exist. I know, Darius replied, standing beside her but not touching. But I can't pretend that what we've built together, the trust, the partnership, the way you've stood beside me through all of this doesn't matter either. She turned to face him, tears streaming freely now. I don't know how to reconcile these truths. I don't know if it's even possible. Then we'd do it together, Darius replied, taking her hand in his. Not by forgetting the past, but by honoring it while building something better. Your uncle devoted his life to peace between our peoples. Maybe the greatest way to honor his memory is to prove that even after the deepest wounds, healing is possible. Amara thought about her uncle, of his kindness and wisdom, of the way he'd always chosen understanding over hatred. Would he want her consumed by vengeance, or would he want her to build the bridge he died defending? I need you to promise me something, she whispered. Promise that you'll spend the rest of your life working for peace. That every decision you make, every action you take will be in service of preventing others from suffering the way we have. That you'll make Theron's dream of unity your mission. I promise, Darius said without hesitation. I'll dedicate my life to the world he envisioned. And I'll love you, if you'll let me, with the devotion and honor that kind of future requires. Amara looked into his eyes, seeing pain and hope and infinite love. The path ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be people who judged them, who couldn't understand, who would see betrayal where she saw transformation. But perhaps that was what true peace required. The courage to choose love over hatred, growth over stagnation, hope over despair. She stepped into his embrace, letting him hold her as she finally allowed herself to cry. For her uncle, for all they'd lost, for the complicated beauty of what they'd found amid the ashes. I love you, she whispered against his chest, and that terrifies me almost as much as losing you would. Then we'll be terrified together, Darius replied, pressing a kiss to her hair. And we'll build something worthy of the sacrifice your uncle made. 3 months later, Amara stood before the assembled council, now reformed to include both human and Valoran representatives. Talaran had been tried and exiled, his followers scattered. The peace accords were strengthened, trade routes reopened, and cultural exchange programs established. Darius stood beside her, no longer as a military captain, but as her chosen partner and advisor. Their union, announced publicly and without apology, had sparked debates and discussions across both societies. Some celebrated it as a symbol of unity, others condemned it as betrayal. But Amara